David Goggins, you know the name, you've seen the memes. The guy who runs ultramarathons for fun, who screams motivation into a camera while doing pull-ups. But behind the viral clips and the intense stare is a story that's raw, real, and relentless. This dude is the definition of a badass. Not because he was born that way, but because he built himself from the ground up, through pain, through failure, through sheer willpower. Goggins' story isn't about being born tough. It's about becoming tough when life gives you every reason to break. He didn't come from privilege, he came from pain. It's about overcoming unbelievable pain to become the hardest motherfucker alive. He doesn't sugarcoat it, he doesn't romanticize the grind, he tells it like it is. Brutal, ugly, and necessary. He lays out his brutal childhood, growing up in a home filled with violence, fear, and instability. He escaped poverty and abuse, not by running from it, but by facing it head on. He talks about failing Navy SEAL training, not once, but twice. Most people would have quit. Most people do. But Goggins? He came back, again, and again. Then he pushed himself harder than ever before. He didn't just pass, he became a legend. A Navy SEAL, an ultra-endurance athlete, a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to quit. Goggins' book isn't your typical self-help fluff. There are no shortcuts, no magic formulas, no just think positive nonsense. It's a punch in the face, a wake-up call, a challenge to stop lying to yourself and start doing the hard work. He's telling you, straight up, that you're capable of way more than you think. We all are. But we've been conditioned to settle, to stay safe, to avoid discomfort. Most of us never tap into that power. We stay comfortable. We choose the couch over the cold morning run, the easy path over the one that breaks us down and builds us back up. Goggins, he chose suffering. He embraced it like a friend. And in the process, he learned to control his mind, his body, his entire freaking destiny. He didn't just train his muscles, he trained his mind to be unbreakable. This book is a blueprint for doing the same. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's about building mental calluses, about doing the things you hate like you love them. It's about conquering your weaknesses, your doubts, the voice in your head telling you to quit. That voice, Goggins calls it the inner bitch. And he teaches you how to shut it down. It's about pushing past those limits, physically, mentally, emotionally. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And trust me, it's going to hurt. But with Goggins as your guide, you might just surprise yourself. You might find strength you didn't know existed. You might discover that the real you, the unstoppable you, has been waiting all along. You might just become unstoppable. Not because you were born that way, but because you chose to be. Can't Hurt Me is more than just a memoir. It's a wake-up call. A raw, unfiltered look into the mind of a man who refused to accept the limits life tried to place on him. It's a manual for mental toughness, a blueprint for anyone who wants to break free from the chains of mediocrity and step into their full potential. Goggins hammers home the idea that we all have this untapped potential within us, this inner beast that's been caged by comfort, fear, and self-doubt. He calls it the 40% rule. The idea that when your mind tells you you're done, you're really only at 40% of your true capacity. That's when the real work begins. The point is, we're not limited by our bodies nearly as much as we are by our minds. Our thoughts, our fears, our excuses, they're the real barriers. We let fear dictate our actions. We let doubt whisper lies about who we are and what we can achieve. And worst of all, we believe those lies. Goggins argues that most people live their lives at a fraction of their true capacity. They go through the motions, never tapping into the fire that's buried deep inside. They settle for comfort, for routine, for good enough. But good enough is the enemy of greatness. Goggins wants you to reject that mindset, to stop making excuses, to stop waiting for the perfect moment, because it doesn't exist. He wants you to embrace the suck, to lean into the pain, the discomfort, the grind, because that's where growth lives, to push yourself beyond your perceived limitations, to discover that you're capable of far more than you ever imagined, to become comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where transformation begins. This is where the real magic happens, not in the comfort zone, but in the struggle, in the climb, in the moments when you want to quit, but choose not to. When you start to challenge your beliefs about what you're capable of, you begin to rewrite your story. When you start to see pain and adversity not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth, you become unstoppable. That's how you build mental resilience. By showing up day after day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's how you forge an unbreakable spirit. One rep, 1 mile, one decision at a time. That's how you unleash your inner beast. Goggins' story is the heart of this book. He doesn't shy away from the darkness of his past. He describes a childhood filled with poverty, racism, and horrific abuse at the hands of his father. This isn't easy listening, but it's crucial to understanding the man Goggins became. He talks about being overweight and depressed, stuck in a dead-end job. He talks about the moment he saw a documentary about Navy SEALs, and how it lit a fire in him. This was his chance to break free, to become something more. But SEAL training is notoriously brutal. It's designed to weed out the weak. Goggins failed, twice. But each time he came back stronger, more determined. He used his past pain as fuel, pushing himself beyond his physical and mental limits. He eventually graduated with Bud S Class 235, proving that anything is possible if you're willing to suffer. This is where the rubber meets the road, where comfort ends and growth begins. It's the moment you decide to stop coasting and start climbing. Every step forward from here is a choice to challenge your limits. The 40% rule is Goggins' central philosophy. It's not just a motivational quote, it's a mindset, a way of life. It's the belief that most people quit long before they've reached their true capacity. It's the idea that when your mind is screaming at you to stop, when your body feels like it's shutting down, you're actually only 40% tapped out. You've still got more than half of your potential left untouched. You've got another 60% in the tank, but it's buried deep. You won't find it by staying comfortable. You have to dig, to fight, to push through the resistance. And this isn't just about physical endurance. It's about mental toughness, emotional resilience, the ability to keep going when everything in you says, stop. It's about everything in life. Your job, your relationships, your personal goals. The 40% rule applies when you're chasing a dream, building a business, or simply trying to be a better version of yourself. When you hit that wall, that invisible barrier that tells you you've had enough, that's when the real work begins. That's when most people quit, but not you. That's when you push past the pain, the fear, the voice in your head that says you can't. That's when you silence the doubt, overcome the exhaustion, and rise again, stronger, sharper, more focused. That's how you discover what you're truly capable of, not by avoiding struggle, but by embracing it, by leaning into the discomfort and using it as fuel. Goggins provides practical strategies for applying the 40% rule in your own life. He doesn't just talk about pushing limits, he shows you how. He talks about setting small, achievable goals, wins that build momentum, steps that seem minor, but add up to massive change, and then, gradually increasing the challenge, pushing the boundary a little further each time, testing your limits, and then redefining them. He emphasizes the importance of self-reflection, taking time to look inward, to identify your weaknesses, not to judge them, but to understand them, and then actively working to improve them, day by day, rep by rep, conversation by conversation. It's not about being perfect, it's about constant evolution, about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that's where growth lives. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and watch more of our great videos. Thanks for watching!